language well. So, Wade's books have been selected multiple times as must-reads by NBC Today Show, featured in USA Today, The Washington Post, and Chelsea Lately. Wade is a noted humorist of 4 critically acclaimed memoirs. He was a finalist for the Goodreads Choice Awards in Humor. He lost to Tina Fey. Actually, that's a pretty good thing. That's
a good loss.
Yes, it is. Wade's novels, written under the pen name Viola Shipman, are beloved by readers across the world. Wade chose his grandmother's name as a pen name to honor the woman whose heirlooms and family stories inspire his fiction. I am so pleased to have you here. Thank you, Wade, again. And if I can just remind everybody to mute yourself so we don't have to have any disruptions. Thank you all. So, like I was saying before, I read this book. It's a feel-good story. I saw in one interview you said that this is your first Christmas novel, but I did read somewhere that you had another one, Christmas in Tinseltown.
Yeah, I've written, like, they're novellas, little short stories that I've done in advance of this. So this is really the first fully formed winter holiday novel that I've written.
Well, it's such a feel-good story. It's such a story about friendship, family, and it's beautiful. How did you come up with the idea?
You know, I always say every single book I write starts with a big question, you know, something I'm wrestling with or want to answer, or I think readers want answered. And this actually started with a question from Nancy Thayer, who's a New York Times bestselling novelist.
No big deal. Yeah.
No big deal. And a friend of mine, and she had written a holiday book a few years ago called Let It Snow. And she sent me the book with an inscription. She said, "Why haven't you written a holiday book yet?" And it really resonated because, you know, as the main character, I don't want to give too much away, but the main character in the book loses her sister when she's young, which changes the trajectory of her life. And I lost my brother when I was young. And so, you know, the holidays really took on a different feel for my family, but I wanted to write a hopeful story, kind of a holiday hug to everyone. You know, you look at the last few years that have been so hard for everyone. We've lost 700,000 people. And, you know, the holidays aren't going to be the same for so many folks. And I wanted to kind of provide an uplift for them and tell them that it's going to be okay. So it started with really a deep question. And then, knowing me, I love humor. Humor's like my self-defense mechanism. So I wanted to make it joyful as well and funny.
Well, your humor definitely shines throughout this book. It's gripping and it's sad at parts too, but it makes it a really good story. So I was reading about one of your Christmases, the Christmas after your brother had passed away, and your mom, I guess your family was so into Christmas, like it was done up to the nines, like your grandmother, your parents, your brother, he used to drag the tree in from the fields. And just tell us about that and the way your mom sat you down the Christmas after he passed, because that's a beautiful story in itself.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so we were that family that people avoid at the holidays, like the Griswolds. And, you know, my grandmother put up trees and had a path, you know, she had to cut a path through all the gifts to get to the kitchen. And, you know, holidays were everything for my family growing up. And after we lost my brother, you know, he was, like Sonny's sister in the novel, was the king of Christmas to us, the king of the holidays. And he was the one. I grew up in the Missouri Ozarks. And he went into our woods and he cut a tree down every year, and he would drag it into our house and put it in a tree stand and drench it in tinsel. And the year after he passed away, I thought, you know, Christmas would kind of come and go, like quiet as a church mouse. And I walked in one day and my grandma and my mom were in the living room, and they cut a tree down from the woods and dragged it in, put it in a tree stand and drenched it in tinsel. And my mom, she's told me, she goes, "Why are we trying so hard to forget about your brother? He's the reason we are who we are. We should be celebrating his memory, never forgetting it."
What a strong woman.
She was, you know, my mother was a nurse and then became a hospice nurse later in her life. And she was the smartest, strongest, funniest, quirkiest woman in the world. You know, I grew up my whole life was surrounded by strong, independent women. Yeah. And it changed me, and it changed me greatly. And I just really wanted to write this book as, you know, the holidays are hard for so many people. We just wanted to be happy, but I wanted to I wanted to let them know that it's okay to feel at the holidays as well.
It really is. And you know what? There's so much pressure to have the perfect holiday, the Norman Rockwell Christmas, and it's far from that for many people. So I think you got that right.
Thank you. It's never like that.
No. Even the
Ever.
best families drop the
You're
turkey.
exactly ever. I have to say though, we've continued that. Gary and I, we're still that couple that puts up 7 trees that are themed, and snow globe collections and bottle brush villages. And so that's continued in our lives. And those memories carry forth.
Well, it sounds like you were brought up by some very creative people too. There was a lot of laughter, a lot of imagination going on. Is that why you became a writer?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I grew up, I always say adjunct South. I grew up in the Ozarks, right in the corner of Southwest Missouri. We used to say we could spit into Arkansas, which, my dad said we should, which was his joke, Arkansas, Missouri rivalry. And I think, my grandmothers and my grandfathers, like my mom and my dad, were great oral storytellers. My grandma and mom would tell a story that would last for weeks. They never met a comma or a period in their lives. It would just go. My dad would actually be in the other room when my mom would tell a story, and he'd yell, "Land the plane, Geraldine," because it would the stories would not end. And I think that always resonated with me because my grandmothers and my mom and dad shared the stories of their lives, and it impacted me greatly. I grew up loving Irma Bombeck. Crickets when I talk about her to high schoolers and college students today, but
They
her
missed
column,
out.
they did. Her column was in our local paper,
Yeah.
and I saw how my grandmothers laughed and changed when they read her every week, and so all of that changed me and made me want to write.
Well, thank God you did, honestly. Was there a favorite story that you had that they told while you were growing up?
There were many favorites. I have to say
I'll
one of
put you
my
on the spot.
best one of my favorite stories is I had this crazy aunt and uncle that got out, that they always said got out of the Ozarks, and they moved to California and lived. They were the ones that went to Vegas, and we're like, ooh, Vegas, and had drinks once with Dean Martin, and would tell all of these stories. And they were nuts, and they used to dress up as Mr. and Mrs. Claus at our holidays, and get very, very drunk, sing a bad version of Jingle Bells.
Oh God.
And I loved them. And my aunt and uncle used to, when there would be tornadoes at our log cabin and the summer cabin in the Ozarks, they would rush to the cave that's right beside the cabin. And they would tell me all the stories of their lives. What it was like in the real world, and what it was like once you got out and got to meet people and be your true self. And I know that's not a specific story, but that always stayed with me and changed me and resonated deeply with me.
Interesting. Was there a favorite storyteller in the family, or was it just both your parents or
Everyone was a good, my dad was the funniest dang guy in the world.
Yeah.
He would, he just had a unique sense of humor. My mother, I think, being a nurse and then a hospice nurse, filled her time with stories, because many of the people she, nursed and cared for, couldn't respond. And I think she wanted to be as big as life to them, to know that there was someone with them. She was a huge presence. And my grandmother as well. My grandma was the least, my pen name, Viola Shipman, was the least egocentric person in the world. And she demonstrated love and told me stories through everything she baked and the quilts she made. And, all of the little things that we take for granted was how she told the story of my family.
Well, I think you prove that with your books, that you're showing everybody love too.
I try, that's the big thing. Is I always say my grandmother, all of my grandparents were working poor. My grandma Shipman, she was a seamstress. She stitched overalls at a local factory till she couldn't stand straight. My grandpa Shipman was an ore miner. They sacrificed everything for our family to have a better life. And they understood what we all often don't get, and what we've learned these last couple of years. The little things mean the most, having a roof over our heads, and
Family.
um, having food, and family and friends, each other. That's what my grandmother always said. She used to always say, life's as short as one blink of God's eye, but we forget what matters most in that blink. And that's
Mhm.
just us. And so that truly set a foundation, not only for me as a person, but as a writer. And those are the things, what matters most are the things that I really want to write about.
You're gonna make me cry. Let's get
I
on to
do.
something else.
Yeah, I know. I do believe I really write to want people to connect to their histories and their families, and
And
ask
to relate,
questions that
yeah.
they maybe have not asked before, and if they walk into your bookstore long after I'm gone and you happen to have a Viola Shipman novel, I want them to say her name and understand why I chose a pen name, and to ask a question.
Mhm. So I was reading somewhere that you did an Irma Bombeck writers workshop with Jenny Lawson. What?
I I
Have you
did
met
this.
her?
She's actually, I have not met her in person, but we chatted for this. We were both keynote speakers. So Irma Bombeck at University of Dayton, where she used to live, has a biannual writers conference, humor writers conference. And so I was asked to keynote this year with Jenny Lawson.
That's
And
amazing.
she's incredible. I mean,
So are
she is,
you.
thank you. When I have a new memoir coming out, she wrote what I aspire to do as well, which is humor only comes from a place of incredible honesty,
Mhm.
and heartbreak and hardness. And so, we were able to chat a little bit about that. And she opened the Irma Bombeck Writers Virtual this year conference, and I ended it. And it was truly magical. I mean,
Oh, I bet.
writers
You
from
fly in
all
that
around the
wall.
world. Yeah, writers around the world came, and you know, they want to write and they want to share their story. But both Jenny and I, my message is, we're defined by fear in life way too much.
Mhm.
We are taught to fit in, and not be our unique selves, which is the biggest curse. The only thing that we have going for us in life is to be us. And when we throw that away, we lose our gifts, not only as souls, but as artists. So channel the weird and the different. And that's what a lot of what I talked about. And, we all have a voice up here that calls to us. And as a writer, that's the only thing we have, because we all use the same tool belt of words, just how we
Yeah.
bring a story to life that matters. So to be able to share that with Jenny was great. And I'm coercing her kindly to blurb my new memoir that comes out in May. So knock on wood.
So what is your new memoir about? Because you have 4 other ones that are
Yeah,
different sections of your life.
this is my first in 10 years. And it's called Magic Season. And it's about my tumultuous relationship with my Ozarks dad. Um, could not have been more different. But the only thing that bonded us was our love of baseball and the St. Louis Cardinals. So the book takes place inning by inning over the last game we ever watched together, and goes back and forth through
Oh,
life. And it's really a book about, it's very funny and very sad, but it's a book about how much we all seek acceptance from our parents. Sometimes never get what we want, and yet we yearn for that our whole lives.
we
Um,
do.
it's a beautiful, I'm really excited about it.
I am too. When are you going to be done with that? Do you know?
It's done. It's out, and just got the cover. It's out in May. And then I follow that up with my next summer Viola Shipman novel in July. So
Any word on getting your book into the movies?
it's,
Not that it's
you know,
ever as good.
it, here's my thing. Yes, there are lots of talk. My,
Oh,
my agent always says you want someone that loves your book as much as your publisher or your editor does. So that's what we always seek. It's always, people want the book, but are they going to do the right thing with it? And for people who don't know, and I didn't know this, what happens a lot is they want to option your book to take it off the table. So they'll pay you something
Oh.
for a number of years just to remove it, but there's not a movie star attached or a director or backing or producers. And that's what you want, is you want it legitimized from the start so that it's going to go someplace. So I'm just going to say things are going to happen in art and the works. So, but they kill me for saying too much. That's why I drink.
Me too. Did you know there's a paper shortage?
There is a paper shortage, I know. So that's what I always tell people: buy The Secret of Snow now from page 158 for
Yes.
yourself and for holiday gifts, because who knows in a month.
Do you know how many hundreds of your book we've mailed out this past week?
Seriously?
Yes, this is the last copy at the store and it's mine. So
You
that's a
might have
big
to
deal.
give that, you might have to give that up.
No, I'm not. Because I have to finish it. Because like I said, I don't finish it because I'll give everything away. So tell us about the story. Why should people buy this book?
Oh my gosh. I'll do macro micro. That's
Okay.
okay. The wine's kicking in, folks. So sorry. This is, on a macro level, it's a love story in all caps with, glitter and 3 dimension. And people always, when they say love story, I know they think of romance, and there is a lovely romance in this. But it's a love story between a mother and daughter. It's a love story between siblings. It's a love story between friends. It's a book about second chances and coming home, and why running is never the solution in life. And on the micro level, it follows a 50-year-old meteorologist named Sunny Dunes. And I love this because I've had so many authors say, oh my God, you actually wrote a main character that's 50 plus.
I know, that doesn't happen.
God bless you. It's not
Yeah.
a 23-year-old tube topper, influencer that knows nothing. And she lives in Palm Springs, California, and knows only sunny skies, great weather, 75-degree days. And she finds out from her new boss, who's given the network by his father, that she's going to be replaced by an artificial intelligent meteorologist, weather girl, who will never. So
stupid.
Incredibly rude.
Yes.
Who is, he says she will never age, gain weight, or renegotiate her contract. And Sunny does what I would do. She goes out and gets blind drunk at a Rat Pack bar in Palm Springs.
This is the funniest part of the story so far.
And I don't want to give too much away, but they put her in a Lyft to go home, but she tells the driver to take her back to the station, where she has a on-air meltdown of epic proportion that she wakes up hungover the next day to find out has gone viral. And the only station that will hire her back is in northern Michigan, in the town that she ran from when she was a kid. That is, if you do not know Michigan, winter and construction are the longest seasons. Lake effect snow, it's full on blizzard, dark days. And she's hired by a frenemy of hers from college that wants to woo viewers, but also torture Sunny. And she throws her back into all the winter activities that Michigan has to offer, and that many of you love too, but snowshoeing and cardboard sledding and Yeti festivals and ice fishing, if you've never been. And, the big thing is that Sunny ends up confronting the memories of the sister she lost, who loved winter more than anything, and also returns to the place that truly was her home. And it's all about second chances, and really the big part of the love story is learning to love yourself again and being comfortable with who you are. And as I said, as we've talked about, it's really a big holiday hug. And I wrote it for people that maybe have experienced loss and don't know how to deal with it. The relationship between Sunny and her mother is so beautiful and so real. This has been called a literary Ted Lasso, which is my favorite review to date, by Shelf Awareness. So I'm really thrilled I think that's a beautiful summation of the book. It's funny, but it really deals with a lot of true emotions that we all go through.
I took it as too, like some people just exist. Like she was existing in her life. She went to work, she came home, you know, but she was existing. She wasn't living. And in order to get over the pain that she had that was so severe and so hurtful to her, she needed to go home. And then she found not only her home, but a love of her life.
And it's you know what, you've just beautifully summed that up. That's exactly right. And it mirrors a lot of my own life too. For so many years before I was writing, I was successful and okay, but I was existing. I wasn't me. My mother, being a hospice nurse, used to always say, and it's paralleled in this book through her mother. My mother used to always say, so many people end their lives filled with regret. Every single day I talk to them and there's a regret in their life, about something they didn't do or something they didn't say. And oh my gosh, that, my mother was, my foundation and moved me along. But you've just summed it up. That's the heart of the book, is becoming you.
Yes.
Letting your heart, pardon the pun, letting your heart, the ice on your heart melt and coming to life again.
I love that part. There's a part that she's talking about her sister and her when they were doing the Wizard of Oz. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I love that part too.
Yeah. So if you're like me, the Wizard of Oz is it's just one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't want to give too much away, but there is, when you watch the Wizard of Oz, you know how it goes from black and white to Technicolor. To me, that describes Sunny and her life. What happens when you see life in bright color again, when you see yourself in color again? That's exactly kind of her transformation in the book.
And I love it.
And I love that movie.
Me too. And I remember like growing up, I'm way older than you, but it came on once a year and we were planning our whole week around it. We would take a nap, we would have a shower and just set out to watch that. So I love that you included that part in your book.
It's it's like all the holiday cartoons I used to watch with my grandma growing up. It was, Rudolph would be out once a year. And so you'd make the cookies and the hot chocolate and you'd watch it and you'd be like, how did they do that stop motion?
Oh yeah.
So magical. I still watch them every single year. Peanuts and Rudolph. And
so two of my best customers are here tonight. One of them being Barbara Wojcik, and she told me to ask you what your favorite book is growing up and what your favorite book is now.
Wow, that's a great question. It changes so much. This is, I really am going to have to hearken back to Irma Bombeck because, and I will a little backstory. So growing up in rural Missouri in the 70s, not good for all of this, I entered our middle school talent contest and I sang Delta Dawn.
Oh, I love that song.
The Tanya Tucker version, by the way.
Can you belt it out at two now? Just a little bit.
One more glass of wine.
Okay.
And I held a faded rose and I got heckled off stage. And I was so mad at my mom and my grandmothers for letting me go up there and do that. And they gave me a writing journal and told me to start writing. And they gave me Irma Bombeck's book, At Wit's End, which I started reading. And, as a funny boy that never fit in, oh my gosh, the way she wrote about family and just I always say the minute moments in life that connect us all. Oh my gosh, it just moved me and changed me. And I started writing essays as a kid that tried to be like Irma. Just snippets of my family. Like my dad would leave the Thanksgiving turkey out too long. And I'm like, we're going to die, Dad.
Every year.
Every year. And we survive, but it's the little things like that. So I would have to say that would be the book that changed me. I could give so many as an adult. I reread, oh my gosh, I could go on and on. I reread The Catcher in the Rye every single year. And I know a lot of people, it has a different meaning for a lot of different people. But it changed for me as an adult versus seeing a bratty kid when I read it when I was younger versus someone that's like all of us who just wants to shake the world by the shoulders and say, be normal, cut the BS and just be normal. So that book I reread every year. I read Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott.
Oh yeah, I love that.
A writing guide. It's on my desk along with On Writing by Stephen King. Just grand life advice. Anne Lamott's one of my favorite writers.
She's fantastic. Yeah.
And I reread most of her books every other year as well. Gosh, I'm a big, influential, and I promise I'll shut up. Influentially,
Oh no.
I grew up in the 80s, so I loved Bret Easton Ellis, Less Than Zero and Bright Lights, Big City, Jay McInerney, those books. And I reread those every couple of years because they kind of connect to me as an 80s kid. So those plots.
I like those too.
Yeah.
I just had a thought and it left my brain because I'm at that age too, where it's like
age and wine.
Oh, good Lord. So is there like when you were writing a book, when you're writing any book, do you have like a set routine going in the morning, like through the afternoon? Do you drink wine and then try to write? What do you do?
I'm super anal and ritualistic. So yeah, I get up pretty early. I mainline coffee in the morning. I like to be writing by like 7. I have a carriage house here in Michigan that's attached to the house that overlooks the woods and can hear the lake in the background. I write usually about 5 hours every day, usually on the book that I'm working on, because writing a couple of books a year now, the deadlines are truncated and I don't like to count words or pages. So I like to be ahead of the curve and I like just to be in the story and the characters' heads. So I do that and then I work out every single day right after I finish writing. So I run, I'm a big runner. The more physically exhausted I get, the more kind of mentally alert I become, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
So I come back and I take copious notes, what should happen tomorrow? What stunk earlier in the day? And then the rest of the day is, what I call the business of publishing. I call publishing BART. It's business meets art, but business is the horse that leads the cart. So you do, virtual events and book clubs and social media and all the things that you have to do to really stay connected to readers who love you. And, I don't really edit a book till I'm done. I'm a former journalist, so I try to edit as I go. But I think they're two very different creative processes. So I really like to stay in the creative flow. And I truly, in a manuscript, will write, this sucks, go back, or improve dialogue. That's how classy I am. I've had these conversations with authors like Eric Larson and Susan Mallory, and they're like,
are these your friends too? Like just name dropping Eric Larson?
Susan
Mallory.
Susan really is. And they're authors I've admired and have done events with and stayed in touch with that, have been incredible inspirations. But I'm not as
business in the world to be in, isn't it?
I'm not as classy as they are. So, and they
You're
always
classier than me. So I'm wearing teeth.
Which I thought were pumpkins. Yeah, they plot and do all of that stuff. And I, again, in big red type, I put stinks, go back, you're horrible.
Don't do that to yourself.
Self-motivation.
Yeah. So when you have to do the editing part, is that one of the hardest parts of doing your book writing?
It really is, because it really is. It's, it's the heavy lifting. New writers always say to me, I finished my first draft and I'm like, congratulations, you've got 14 more to do. That's where the serious work comes in. You cut so much and you recalibrate and it can change. I always say it's like pushing dominoes. You change something and they keep falling and falling and falling through the course of the book, and everything changes as a result. But with that and my editor and agents changes, they become significantly better.
Do you always feel like that, or do you feel like sometimes they try to take away what your message is?
I don't. I have been blessed to have some great editors, and I adore my agent. And I'm not saying that because she's watching and takes 15% of everything. But I do, I always tell writers this: publishers and editors buy your work because they love it and believe in it. And they want it, I truly believe, to be the best book it can be. And so when they come to you with their editorial letters, which can be extensive and monstrous after you've turned in a book, they're doing it from a place of good, I believe. And sometimes distance is good. Having someone's perspective that you trust, most importantly, you should take that to heart. Listening as a writer is one of the biggest things we can do. If we are able to take rejection or criticism, we're doomed. So I always take people I trust from a great place and listen. I don't always agree. I fight for many things, but sometimes I do. Their advice is good.
That's awesome. So in a couple minutes, we're going to ask some questions from the audience. One of the big burning questions is, what are you drinking tonight, Wade?
So this is incredibly pathetic. I actually have the bottle that I'm celebrating today and tomorrow.
It's opening. Yeah.
This is called Flat Top Hills, and it's a Sauvignon Blanc. And I'm drinking Sauvignon Blanc tonight because I ran out of my beloved rosé earlier. So it's not like my second bottle, but it's very good.
Well, that's good.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking a Chardonnay, which is not usually my thing, but tonight Cheers. It is.
We're both drinking whites, I know.
Yes. And I wanted to ask you personally, what is the theme song of your life?
Oh my God, that's a great question.
Well, I wake up every morning with a song stuck in my head. Usually they're terrible and I'll sing them the whole day and annoy everybody I'm around, but.
Gary's talking in the background. Okay, so I'm an 80s girl, 70s, 80s. So for me, if there were a theme song, it might be I Will Survive, Gloria Gaynor. Because
can you sing that for us, Wade?
Hold on.
Just a couple bars.
Hold on. What would yours be?
Born to be Wild. That used to be my song. But now I'm 53 and I'm old. So
no. And you know what's going to happen? I have a feeling that when we actually get together in person, there might be a building that burns.
We're both going to have to wear pants.
Again, stretch pants.
Yes. All right. So a question from Heidi. Watching you all tour and tour and tour reminds me of a bit of a singer with a hit song that sings it over and over and over again. By the time you finish touring, are you generally very ready to say goodbye to the current novel and start a new one? That's a great question.
That is a great question. No. What's interesting? Many writers are not like me, but I love bringing a book to life for readers. And as we were talking about, I've loved the one silver lining of the last couple of years has been a lot of these virtual events where in many ways, people who are too busy to make it to events can be a part of things like this. And we follow up with each other and can be deeply connected. I feel like every event I do is different. I meet unique people and we share things that like tonight that I've never shared before. I would say on a different note, what's hard is regarding your editing question is often when I turn in a novel and my editor gets edits back, I've moved on. I am writing 2 different books. I'm in a total different mind space creatively, and I have to go back. It's like an actor maybe talking about a movie that they did a year ago and they're doing a new one. That's harder for me to kind of go back to those edits and revisit the project that's not out, but I have to delve back into, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now will you sing? I'm just going to keep asking. Michelle
Gary's going to join me.
No, you can totally sing.
Oh, come on, Gary, get online.
I'll finish this. I'm going to sing.
Okay.
Hold on. It's coming.
Michelle Marcus wants to know what you're reading right now.
I'm not, Michelle, I know Michelle, I'm not reading I finished reading a couple of holiday books. So Susan Mallory, I'm doing a virtual event with her tomorrow. I just finished her book, so I can be semi, cogent talking about her. But right now, I'm delving into a new book and promoting this. So nothing else is on my table right now. I can't do it. I can't go back and forth. But there are many waiting.
I do have a suggestion for you. Chuck Palahniuk. I say his name wrong every single time, and I try to correct myself, and it gets worse. But he has a book about writing, which is phenomenal.
Oh, wow.
I have to read that one.
I
It's
will
nothing like Fight Club. Nothing at all.
Is it full on advice? I'm sure it is. Like
It is, but it's just generally the writer's life and everything. It's very, very, yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I'll get that. Thank you.
People are saying they're so grateful for virtual events. I am too, because without them last year, we would have been all alone. And can you talk to us a little bit about your online presence on Facebook? Because I just found out about that.
Yeah, I do a lot on social media. So Viola Shipman on Facebook. Anybody that wants to watch, please follow Viola Shipman, because I do tons of personal stories. We do Wine and Words with Wade every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, where I interview best-selling authors. We have a monthly office party with giveaways that's themed, because we're those people. Gary comes in costume. We're doing one with Mary Kay Andrews, in fact, this Thursday.
Oh my gosh, that'll be a riot.
Gary's coming as Mrs. Claus. So
great.
Hold on to your reindeer. It's going to be
a hoot too.
She's a hoot.
Oh my gosh, I love her.
And then after her, I'm interviewing Cheryl Woods from Sweet Magnolias. She's helping me launch The Secret of Snow. So I do that every Thursday. And then my connection with readers is, I take it very personally and try to,
you can tell,
and try to connect with each one. I always say, everybody watching tonight, you could be doing a million other things besides being here tonight. And I'm eternally grateful for that.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. I'd like to know if there's a story that Wade really wants to write, but hasn't had the opportunity to write yet. That's from Susan Kamalski.
Wow.
I hope I pronounced that right.
I think you did. Yes, there are probably two. One would be, and it's different, it would be a Wade Rouse versus a Viola Shipman novel, but I've thought a lot about this, Susan. It's called #1983, and it's about a 20-something woman who's a social influencer on TikTok.
Oh, that's me.
It's you, who still lives at home, knows nothing about nothing, with a load of followers who think she's everything. And she ends up living off her parents' buck until they get upset. And she wants to make one final TikTok video that gets her to 1 million followers. And she falls and knocks herself unconscious and wakes up, and it's 1983. And she has to navigate the world without technology or social media. Nothing. Remember when we used to write directions and use rotary phones and pull out a map? That's what this woman has to deal with. And I'm fascinated because I think it would be hilarious. And I also think that I could bring the 80s to life in it. The other is I wrote a memoir that I'm going to revisit that was not published. And I called it a hair memoir, called Bad Hair Day, because I'm obsessed with hair and how our hair has changed over the years. This makes sense, because it was like my superpower growing up. I had a feather and I grew it out and I cut it short and I bleach it. And my mother was the least vain person that I knew. And when she had cancer, she shaved her head, threw her wig aside and said, who cares? And so I wanted to juxtapose the humor of and the self-esteem of what image means to us in a memoir. So I know that's a lot, but those are the two. Great question.
I'm looking through, there's so many. Does Gary have a costume closet?
Yeah, tubs.
Tubs
and tubs.
I can't even answer this with, pardon the straight face. Gary has not only a costume closet, he has color-coded tubs in the basement by holiday and by character.
I don't think there's
And
anything wrong with that.
and he has a wig closet too. So
Good for him.
the wigs are on heads. They're taken good care of. Friends come to borrow wigs and we say, you have to sign them out. You're responsible. There's a waiver and insurance. That's how serious we are.
That's fantastic. So everybody says both book ideas sound amazing. You should write it.
I know. I think after I'm going to revisit the memoir after this, and then I do like that idea. I've actually got about 30 pages of #1983.
Oh, I love that. Well, anybody have any last questions?
We're sending more book plates to them.
And I will say that we are.
Sending them.
Can you
We
see?
do need more book plates.
We are sending Secret of Snow book plates to page 158. So
And we have more books coming in, I think, tomorrow. So if you need to buy a book, you know, go to page158books.com and we'll mail you out a copy with signed book plates.
I will
Next
personalize
year, Wade
complimentary,
is coming.
personalize these to all of you. Anybody that orders, please let us know. I will personalize it. If you order holiday gifts, let's say you order 50 tonight from page 158, I will personalize
Ooh.
every single one for Aunt Doris or Grandma Sally or whatever.
Email us that.
And please, you can, to help them out, please email Gary@ViolaShipman.com, Gary@ViolaShipman.com, and we will send as many of these out as we can until we run out. We'll put a little cute bookmark in there as well. There's a lot that we have. And not to babble, but as all of you know, this first week of sales is so important for authors. They count all the books all at once and give a big number to the publisher and the lists. And I can't tell you how much it means. If you haven't ordered a book, please order one from page 158. If you haven't ordered holiday gifts or just want to send some, pass them on, please do so tonight. It would mean the world.
I keep disappearing, but Viola Shipman, The Secret of Snow, it's a fantastic book. You can get it at page 158 books or your local bookstore. Thank you all so much. Wade and Gary, I hope you have a great Halloween weekend, even though
Thank
you're
you,
Christmas
you too.
fire.
Thank
But-
you. And I can't thank you enough.
Oh, I can't thank you. This was a lot of fun. And we do really have a lot of people asking you to sing, you and Gary.
Delta Dawn, what's
What's
that
that
flower
flower?
you have on? Could it be a faded rose from days gone by?
Woo!
And if I heard you say I wasn't leaving you here today, would I take you up to the blah, 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 blah?
In the sky.
That's why I don't allow him to sing in the car or pretty
That
much
was
anywhere.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. I'm Suzanne Lucy for page 158 books with Wade Rouse and Gary, and we can't thank you all enough for being here. Have a great night and great holidays.